Hello, I'm Reggie Turner. I'm here with Henry House, and the FlipSide starts right now. Welcome to the show. Tonight we are here to welcome our current City Councilwoman and now Mayor-elect Emily Keller. So let's get started. Emily, first, congratulations on your historic win.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
So let's kind of go to the beginning. Why did you decide to run for mayor?
So it was really a tough decision. I thought, do I want to run for council? Do I want to run for mayor? And of course, mayor doesn't have a vote. So if I gave up my council seat, I was giving up my vote. But my daughter, who just turned 13 Monday, was like really encouraging me to do it. She knew I would be the first woman, and she really wanted me to run for mayor. So I thought about it, and I looked at where we are as a city, and I thought this city could use a positive leader, because contrary to all of our negative headlines in our local newspaper, we have a lot of really good projects going on and a lot of good momentum, especially prior to COVID, but even throughout COVID. And I believe that a positive leader that speaks that out and updates the community and meets the community and involves the community and just breathes new life is important. So I decided to run.
Excellent. Henry.
Emily, congratulations.
Thank you.
Well earned, well deserved.
Thank you.
Okay. You said positive leader. Does the mayor gets to set the agenda for the meetings? Is that correct?
Absolutely.
So you can sort of target the things that you're looking for. Can you give some ideas out the gate? How are you planning to, in lack of a better term, attack the agenda and attack projects that we have for the city and make Hagerstown, a better place that people want to reside in?
Yes. So tomorrow, actually, we're meeting with the new administration, our entire city staff, the department heads, to introduce themselves, explain what they do, and go over high level what projects they're currently working on. And then we are going to plan community meetings. Now, right now with COVID, and of course with what happened yesterday with Governor Hogan, we may have to do virtual, but the plan is to go out into the community, every part of our community, and meet with our constituents over the next several weeks to hear what's important to them and what they feel the issues are and what they would like to see our administration accomplish. And then we are actually going to have an all-day planning session as an administration, once we're sworn in, with city staff to go over what projects we're currently working on, what's important to the council, what their goals are, and what our administration goals are. I think our current administration has been very effective, but we didn't have that type of planning session for about a year and a half. I think it's very important to get it done right out the gate. So we are going to immediately set goals, immediately find out what do we want our legacy to be in 4 years, and then we're going to plan the agenda around that.
So you said what you want your agenda to be in 4 years. Some of the projects that maybe are crossing your mind may take longer than 4 years to develop.
Absolutely.
So you're actually planning, 10 years down the road, or maybe even beyond that, of how's Hagerstown going to handle its growth? How are we going to handle some of the traffic challenges? How are we going to embolden our communities to strengthen, the local community and the pride within the communities that they have?
Yes.
So can you give us some ideas on what your thoughts are?
Well, I think involving the community is the most important part in strengthening our communities. Something that we've focused on, and I hope this administration continues to focus on, is blight. Our communities, we all can point to that one building that has been vacant for a long time, the one house that's been a long time, it's been abandoned. So we're working on a tax sale program to take those properties and either put them back on the tax rolls, or if they need demolished, to demolish them. Because we really have to work on community pride. And I think that's something I've heard loud and clear over the last several years, especially. When we were growing up, we all knew our neighbors. Our neighbors could all hold us accountable. It really felt like community. And nowadays, my generation, and I'll blame us for being selfish, we're kind of like get out of the car with our blinders on, go right in our home. It doesn't feel like community anymore. So I really want to instill that community pride, focus on that.
Okay.
So in speaking about the properties and the ability to basically return them back to the community, I know that in speaking with staff last year or this past year, that's the Dorchester County model. Where is the city with that in regards to being able to get that enacted, and what's kind of the time frame for that moving forward?
Well, we're working on it now. The tax sale got delayed because of COVID. But we're working on the first 3 now. So, I mean, the time frame is a quick turnaround. And then we've been talking to different nonprofits and different organizations that may be able to take them and flip them, like the Hagerstown Housing Authority, just different ways to make sure it's most effective. But we're going to do 3 at a time. So we're testing 3. We're going to see what works, what doesn't, and then go from there.
Okay. So the discussion about these will be a part of your public meetings going forward?
Absolutely.
Okay,
Yes.
excellent. So let's go back to your campaign a little bit. You know, part of what I've seen is some of the campaign spots that you did with your family and friends and ladies and different things that you did downtown. What things stand out about the campaign for you?
I think it was just a tremendous amount of community support I got. From the second I filed to run, I decided to myself, I said, I'm only going to speak about issues. That's it. I'm only going to speak about issues. I'm going to have palm cards that have, you know, my campaign plan on them, and have a website, and everything I post, everything I talk about is just going to be campaign issues and city issues. I decided, you know, campaigns can get ugly, and we all know that. I decided if that happened, I wasn't going to entertain any of it. I wasn't going to address it. I was just going to stay positive. And I think that resonated with people. And I give it to Mike Barnes. We both ran a clean campaign, and I think the public really respected that. And then, of course, yes, at the end, I had to do my girl power video because I knew I would be the first woman mayor, and having a daughter, and I wanted to involve my parents in it. And so did a call for action for any ladies to meet us down at the cultural trail so we could socially distance and just really celebrate each other. And I certainly didn't want anyone to vote for me because I'm a woman. I wanted them to vote for me because I was the best candidate. But it's still, I am still the first woman, so I wanted to have that positivity out there for little girls to look up to.
Excellent.
Tell me about, this is going to be interesting because you have a lot of fresh faces on the city council.
Yes.
And regardless of male, female, you know, this is unique because we actually have 3 city council women that will be taking the oath.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a dynamic change. Tell me, you know, I haven't been a councilwoman, okay? What's your advice to them? Stepping into those shoes, because you have fresh faces coming in. What's your advice to them stepping into those roles? And, you know, are you kind of feel like you're the mama bear now and walking them through, or you know, how's it going to work? Because it's a different landscape for it.
I think my advice would be to ask a lot of questions. You know, the more you ask staff, our staff, I can't speak highly enough about city staff. I mean, if you don't see them every day, you don't understand the tremendous amount of work that they do. And they're brilliant. I mean, we have just subject matter experts all through City Hall. So I would say ask those questions. You know, I don't know anything about traffic patterns, so I go to Rodney. You know, you got to go to the people who know what they're doing. I would say that, and stay true to yourself. You have to listen to feedback, and you have to listen to your constituents. That's what we're elected to do. But if something doesn't feel right to you, don't do it. And I think we're not going to have that problem at all with the council that got elected. I'm very excited to work with them.
Now, with the changes that we have, what was the feedback when you're out there knocking doors, you're handing out your palm cards? What were you hearing on the streets from the people who were going to go vote? What were their concerns for the city of Hagerstown, and how do you plan to embrace that or not embrace that if it's something that, you know, you're opposed to? What's your thoughts?
So it was an interesting campaign cycle because we couldn't knock on doors because of COVID. We could just door hang. So I did a lot of that. Luckily, I still got to interact with people. And being in the position I'm at as a council person, we get emails all the time. People would reach out through social media. I think the biggest issue we probably get the most emails about, or me personally, is crime. People are concerned about crime. People are concerned about the look of their neighborhood and trash and cleaning things up. And I mean, those are really definitely the 2 big ones. People are concerned about the homeless issue, the opioid issue, but I think there's been a lot of violence that people have seen, and that's a concern. So for us, I mean, we've been working on it. This year has gone significantly better than the previous years. You know, we have a new chief who's been in office for 2 years now, made some changes there, and I think for us, our biggest challenge going into this administration is going to be paying our police department. And you know, we have unions and budget issues, but we did have a salary study that stated that they were underpaid, and what's happening is we're training police officers, which costs a tremendous amount of taxpayer dollars, and in year 3 they're leaving for $7,000–8,000 more somewhere else. And it's a huge waste of resources, and then it's a strain on our community. So that's something we need to focus even with the budget issues we're going to face.
Can you share what the investment is to train a police officer to get them so they're ready to be on the streets and protect? And then, you say it's $8,000 difference, and then we're always getting new faces in. So that's a challenge. But what's the investment we have to get an officer ready?
So between the academy, outfitting them, and the training itself, it's around $80,000.
Okay, so about 10 years worth of tenure is what we're letting go down the street.
Yes.
Okay.
And then that's a problem in the community too, because people want community resource officers. You want to know the officers that are in your neighborhood. It makes people feel safer. It makes them trust you. It makes the community communicate with them. If you're constantly having new faces, you don't have that relationship. And I look at Sergeant Canode, who's downtown often. Everyone knows him, and they trust him, and they respect him, and they have a good relationship with him. That's important, and you can't build that when you're just constantly overturning.
Right. I know previous city I lived in, when I was away at college, they offered an incentive for their police officers to actually reside in the city, which, all of a sudden you have a police officer who is, a couple doors down or a couple blocks away and became part of the fabric of that community. Would you consider doing something along those lines to?
We do have an incentive program for police officers that live in the city. It's not gigantic, though.
Okay.
It could certainly be expanded.
All right.
Yes.
Now, from last of what we've heard is that the city has tremendous budget challenges going forward. I believe the deficit is projected to be about 1.8 million.
Yes.
That's a tough task coming out of the gate.
It is.
How are you going to tackle that?
Well, I mean, the last thing any of us want to do, especially in this environment, is raise taxes. I mean, it would crush people right now. So we're going to have to look at everything, and it's going to require some tough conversations. The City of Hagerstown has not cut services throughout COVID. We have operated as we have every other year. So that's a good thing. But with the budget issues, it's going to come down to what do we want to cut? And what services do you want to cut? And I don't think that's a decision solely for me to make, solely for the council to make. I think that's something the community has to weigh in on too. Do you want your trash picked up once every 2 weeks as opposed to every week? Do you want parks not open as much? It's really, really tough decisions to make. And we have unions in the city, and we have union wage negotiations and contracts that we have to uphold. We need to do an organizational review, and it has already began, but this is something I've been big on, especially throughout this last year. We need to look at internal City Hall, and I certainly don't want to see anyone lose their job. But are we doing things the way that are most effective and cost effective? Are we doing things away because that's the way it's always been done? I think we need to look internally at departments and make sure our organizational structure is how it should be. And if not, I think we're going to have some tough conversations there too regarding staff and staffing levels, because we can't continue to operate the same way that we have. Every year that I've been in office, we've been facing a deficit, and we've made cuts, and we've postponed projects. And at what point is that just a detriment? If we don't pave a road, is it going to be more cost effective, or is it going to be worse because we put it off and then the road's in worse condition? If we don't buy new cars, is the repair cost going to be higher because we pushed it off? So it may make sense in the moment, but not long term. And we can't continue to operate that way. So it's going to require some tough conversations. I've been meeting and talking to the new council members and warning them, like, buckle in, because January is going to come fast and it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough.
Now, one of the best ways possibly to increase your tax base is to bring more businesses in.
Yes.
And do you have ideas of how you can attract businesses into the corporate limits of Hagerstown? I mean, it's great that they come to Washington County and they may reside in Hagerstown or outside of the city limits. But if we were able to get businesses to locate within the city of Hagerstown, that is opportunities that we haven't tapped into yet.
Yes.
And I've been a member of this community since '73. I don't see a lot. We've had businesses come here, but I don't see a lot of them saying, hey, I want to be in Hagerstown. I want to be here. What can we do to make Hagerstown popular again?
So I have to disagree with you a little bit on this one.
Okay.
I think we've had a tremendous amount of growth over the last several years. Like at North Point, we just have the $149 million investment with Amazon coming, and those buildings, 1,500 jobs at a minimum we're looking at. Our economic development department has been booming, even through COVID. And it may be something that the public doesn't see because they don't get updated every day, but we get updated every week. And we do have a lot of growth happening. I think we need to be better at going out of our community. We kind of wait on people to come to us, and Jill is a powerhouse in her department, but we need to be going out and selling Hagerstown. And I think part of that goes back to the voice of the community and the leader of the community and how we're portraying our community. If you see negative things all the time, do you really want to go there? So if we can turn that around and get that community buy-in and start portraying us as a place that people want to go, that's gonna help.
Okay.
All right. We're going to hold it there, and we'll have you back for another segment.
Sounds good.
Stay with us. When we come back, more with Emily Keller. Welcome back to the show. We're still here with Mayor-elect Emily Keller. And Emily, you talked a little bit about the newspaper before, and many of our community feel that the newspaper focuses on problems and not progress. I just want to know, did you agree with that assessment, and what do you think we need to do to fix that?
Absolutely, I agree with that assessment. I think their headlines have gotten more and more dramatic, and from what I understand, that is at direction of the company that bought them, to make them more tabloid-like to sell papers. It's unfortunate if you look at some of the crime incidents that happen. It'll happen in Smithsburg, but it'll say Hagerstown area man, or it'll happen in Boonesboro and it says Hagerstown area. And their reasoning, apparently, is because Hagerstown is more recognizable. Well, it didn't happen in Hagerstown, so why make us look bad? And I think that's really, really unfortunate. And we as a city, this is one of my major focuses as mayor. This is why I keep saying we need to do a better job of getting the information out, whether it's a message from the mayor weekly or a message from the council, things like that, to control the narrative better. Because if you only read our paper, you would have no idea the incredible things that are happening in this city. It's extremely unfortunate.
But, on the newspaper, they're facing declining numbers perpetually, because everyone gets their news, not everyone, but most people get their news from. So, they've really kind of started to angle over to more yellow journalism, so they can just paint something the way they want to share it. So, when you're walking by that, when you're at the checkout sheets, you pick up and say, oh my, what's happening here? And you'll grab it and go out. So there's a lot more positives that go on in Hagerstown. But I want to hit you on one thing that I think is near and dear to your heart, okay? And it's a problem that we have in the entire community up and down the 81 corridor is the opioid crisis, which, of course, that is part of the crime that we have in the city. But can you tell us, that's really how you got your name out there, because you had suffered a tragedy of a friend passed away from opioid addiction. Can you share with us how that has changed your direction and given you the passion on, doing the Washington County Goes Purple, and then how's that going to influence as mayor for the city of Hagerstown?
Yes, it is something, it's one of the greatest health crises in our history, and it's happening all over the country, and I think because of COVID, the opioid crisis is getting less press. So people think it's going away. It is absolutely not going away. Overdose numbers are skyrocketing because people are alone right now. People are isolated. People are desperate. And it's a problem that took years and years to get here. It's going to take years to go away. Over the last 4 years, I've tried to make relationships all over the state to focus on the opioid crisis. Our health department, Washington County, is actually leading the way in the state with initiatives. We have, I think, 29 out of 36 key initiatives that the Opioid Command Center of Maryland would like to see. Here, we're very lucky. We have a harm reduction program, which, of course, was very controversial, and our local delegate took it to task a few months ago. But you can go to the health department, you meet with a peer support specialist, and they provide clean needles, they provide Narcan, they provide sharps containers kits. This is something, and I understand for people who don't understand addiction why that could be controversial. But what they don't see is that these people who are struggling develop relationships with peer support specialists who don't judge them. And when they are ready to go get help, they go get help. They're actually 80% more likely to get help if they're involved in a harm reduction program. So that's something that we need to continue focusing on. Locally, we also have LEAD, which is Law Enforcement Assisted Diversion. And this is when the police take low-level offenders and instead of arresting them, they wrap services around them. They get them in touch with peer support specialists and help get them into treatment or whatever it is they need at that moment. They have mobile crisis that can come to them. And we know we can't arrest our way out of this problem. So thinking outside the box and not doing things the way we have always done them is important. Of course, with Washington Goes Purple, that's an education movement. We've partnered with the school system to try to get more drug education into elementary, middle, and high school. The hashtag is prevent addiction. So the point of Washington Goes Purple is to try to educate and prevent addiction, and also to educate our community, the importance of locking up your medication, the importance of properly disposing of it. And that's evolving every day. We have a planning session Friday because as COVID has changed, I mean, we've done online Narcan training, we've done online instructional videos. I mean, we can't be in public anymore, so we have to change the way that we are getting the message out. But it's something, as mayor, that is important to me because I think it affects our city dramatically, but personally, it's personally important to me. So I'm going to continue to serve on the senior policy group and hopefully help expand the services here locally.
Okay, excellent.
When it comes to Go Purple and fighting the opioid epidemic, what are the metrics that we should look at to see if it's becoming successful in regards to fighting it?
So that's something that Vicki Sterling, the Director of Behavioral Health at the Health Department, she tracks those things. Of course, the number of overdoses are tracked. I pulled them up on my phone. So far this year in 2020, Washington County, there have been 352 overdoses and 55 fatalities. That was as of 2 weeks ago. Last year in 2019, there were 60 fatalities. So unfortunately, we are probably going to exceed last year's numbers. She looks at behavioral health numbers. They send out surveys to schools that interview the kids, and they compare that data every year to see about education, to see if they're experimenting with drugs, to see if they're experimenting with alcohol. So that's all things that the health department tracks and metrics that they're held to for grants and things like that. I think as a community, it's going to be hard because when do we see a difference? You know, if you're talking about an education movement to try to prevent addiction, are you going to see that change in a year? Probably not. Are you going to see it in 5, 10? Hopefully, and we're hoping. And so we do, as an organization, feedback surveys to ask the students, or if we go into like a Girls Inc. or a club like that, to say, you know, was this impactful? What was most impactful? What didn't matter? We meet with the Youth Advisory Council to get their opinions. And so we're constantly just trying to get feedback, especially with something so new as to what's working and what's not.
Now, the challenge with COVID, okay, people are shut in. Mm-hmm. Kids are home learning. Maybe the parents are still going out and working. So, you know, the importance of, you know, the parents securing their medications at home is probably more important today. Yes. Because the kids are kind of, oh, I'm home and I don't have class right now, what am I going to do? And, well, what can this hurt? Do we have any type of hotlines or things that, you know, either the parents or individuals or students can reach out to and say, you know, listen, I might have done something and I think I need help. I know there's community resources, but maybe if you can articulate it for the viewers so they have an idea of what's out there.
Yes, you can absolutely call the health department, and they have access to all of the resources. They can kind of do an intake to see what it is that you need. We have all those numbers available on WashingtonGoesPurple.com as well. And regarding, I just want to address the importance of locking up medication. It is absolutely very important. I mean, there are so many studies done from teenagers who started abusing drugs that say, I got them from my parents' cabinet. And it's something I think as a society we didn't really think about, because we looked at drug addicts as like, not my kid, this is
right.
Not, you know, but that's where it was starting, so it is very important. But also, Washington County Public Schools has a SAP referral program, and there's information on the students' iPads as to how they can reach out for help as well.
And if they pick up the phone and they call or they send an email, this is all non-judgmental.
Yes.
It's not going to bring the police raiding their house and pulling people out.
Absolutely not.
Okay.
Same with overdoses. We have a Good Samaritan law here in Maryland. So if I overdosed right now and you called 911 and had drugs with you, you're not going to be arrested, because at that point it's more important to save a life. And I know that's controversial as well. Our current mayor does not like the Good Samaritan law. He speaks out about it often. But really, at the end of the day, what's more important? And that's a human life, period.
Right. Okay.
So let's talk about one of the elephants in the room,
All right.
the stadium. Now, we know that Major League Baseball has said that they're going to be pulling out, which is going to remove the minor league team. The existing administration has been championing the stadium. We have had study after study in regards to that. Where are we and where are you when it comes to the stadium?
So I voted no on phase 2 of this study, because how many studies do you need? And I thought we didn't have all the information to pull the trigger on that decision right then. But listen, we're not going to have a team. It hasn't been officially announced yet, but I think we've all kind of came to the conclusion that we're not going to hit the Hagerstown Suns. And why would we build a stadium? And I know there's a lot of talk about private leagues coming in, things like that. We're in the midst of a global pandemic, and we have a $1.8 million shortfall. Is it feasible? Is there private investment? And that's been my question the whole time. We always hear about, oh, there's going to be all this private investment. Is there? Where are they? What's their names? What are they putting up? Come to the table. I just don't think we have that. With that said, it is absolutely time for Hagerstown to decide its next big project, because the urban improvement project is wrapping up. It's been successful. It's helping downtown. We have college students coming down, increased foot traffic with the Maryland Theater and other things that have been going on. So what is our next step? And I think this administration has to decide that, and has to decide it soon. And of course, with our partners like GHC that you had mentioned earlier, and different groups. But we need to figure out, are we calling it Urban Improvement Project 2.0? What are we calling it? What are we doing? Councilmember McIntyre proposed an idea for an amphitheater about a year ago when we went to Hagerstown, Indiana. We met with the city administrator of Huber Heights, Ohio, that built it there, and he raved about what it did for their economics. Maryland Theater can only seat 1,200 people, so could it be a complement to that? I think so. But in my opinion, I think it would be great for Hagerstown. But if it's not an amphitheater, if it's not a stadium, what is it? And that's going to have to be a priority of this administration as well.
And to clarify, Major League Baseball made an announcement. They want to reduce teams.
Yes. Okay.
Hagerstown, based upon the numbers that we've pulled, is likely one of the teams that's going to disappear, and they're going to restructure the league. And so, an amphitheater. Explain. Okay. Well, why Hagerstown?
Yes.
Okay. How big? What's the cap cost? Explain how, if we build the amphitheater, are they going to come?
So it's interesting. We went to Hagerstown, Indiana last year because of our sister city relationship with them. So Councilmember McIntyre, my daughter, her friend, we're driving down the interstate, and we see this amphitheater, and both of us are like, hey, that's interesting. It's got a small footprint. I wonder what this is like. So we literally just got off the highway, went and drove and walked around it. They probably thought we were crazy because we were like taking pictures through the gates and everything. So we started researching that area, and their demographics are very similar to ours. The community was very similar to ours. So we reached out to their city administrator. Now that was a city task, like the city built it, and then they they pay an organization to book the acts.
Okay.
So we thought, all right, well, would this compete with Maryland Theater? So we met with Jessica Green, very high level, and just said, hey, we have this idea. If we propose it, will you be totally offended because you just did a $13 million enhancement and we don't want to look like we're competing? And their thing was they can't book bigger name acts because the Maryland Theater only seats 1,200 people. So it could be a compliment to them where you book a bigger act that come perform at an amphitheater, and then their opening act goes and plays at the Maryland Theater. It works in a lot of different places. So.
Okay.
I mean, I think it's worth exploring. Of course, it would have to take a feasibility study, and the word study makes me twitch, but you have to do it. And that's what they did in Huber Heights, Ohio, and it worked.
And in your mind, do you have a vision of where it could be?
No. I mean, there's a couple different places.
Okay.
But yeah.
You don't want to, you have an idea, but you don't want to say it yet.
Well, I think originally we thought it could go where the new stadium was supposed to go, but there's noise issues as well. You'd have to get very creative on noise cancellation. So I think it to be determined.
Okay.
And whether it's a baseball stadium or not, we are a huge sports community, and I know that there has been some outcry from the community in regards to some type of facility that would bring either youth sports downtown. What are your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. I think we absolutely need an indoor turf complex or an indoor sports complex, something. Families travel out of this community every weekend. I think you travel.
Absolutely.
Yes. I travel. My daughter does roller derby. We travel all over. And we see packed hotels and different places that are benefiting from our tourism dollars. When you travel, you eat out. You stay in hotels, and that's money we're missing out on. So I think an indoor sports complex, something that we can bring more youth sports activities to this area is crucial.
Now, the one thing, going back to your amphitheater idea, HCC has an amphitheater that many believe that are underutilized. How do you see this as being different, or do you see that you will run into some of the same issues?
I don't think HCC books acts for theirs, really. I mean, I don't know that I've ever seen
They've had
like their own events there.
No, they've actually brought outside groups in, not. But you know, if you had a team that was focused on the entertainment side, and I don't necessarily think HCC has a dedicated, effort to have a community style theater.
Yeah.
And
Also, I'm curious how
maybe
many
they
seats
do,
it
but it's it's been there. My gosh, I would say probably 20 plus years.
Yeah, I can't remember the last time I was in it. I'm trying to envision how many seats it has.
I don't recall off the top of my head, but if your amphitheater worked in conjunction with the Maryland Theater, I could see that being a joint partnership between the community, and it builds up the reputation of Hagerstown as a destination spot, as a place that we can go and get entertained.
Well, we're an arts and entertainment district. Our downtown is an arts and entertainment district, so why not feed off of that? And I think Lou always says we're the A&E district, arts and education, which I think is true as well, and we need to encourage the students and education, but we are arts and entertainment, so if we're going to do it, let's do it big, right?
Yeah.
Okay, switch gears. Again, I know we're being COVID to death, but have you noticed a difference in City Hall of how they're doing business during the pandemic? Are more workers working at home virtually? Have they developed better ways to complete their tasks and not necessarily be in-house to do it? What's your opinion of how things have?
So we did have some people working from home. The city has not ceased any operations since COVID, but we did have to make some changes to, one, ensure that our employees were safe, because that's the most important thing, to make sure the public, if they come to City Hall, that they're safe. I think like all businesses, we're seeing some things can be done at home that weren't necessarily. I'll speak for myself, because I can work from home with my insurance agency. I don't feel productive at all. I would go to my office even when everything was shut down just to try to focus.
I laugh because I have a home office, and you don't get anything done. When you're home, you think, oh, well, I can put a load of laundry in, or, me saying, oh, I can put a load of laundry in. So, yeah, I certainly understand.
It's interesting, though, because other people swear that they're way more productive at home. And I think some businesses have seen that, too. I think it's personal preference with me. I tell you, I'm like sitting at home like, hey, squirrel.
Yeah, exactly.
And so I think City Hall, we've adapted very well. We haven't really had any major issues. We had one positive that we had to close down the lobby, positive COVID, that was highly publicized, of course. But it's been easy going, actually.
So going back to COVID, what has COVID's effect been on small businesses in the community? And what are you hearing from business owners?
I mean, it's been tough. Restaurants and bars are having a hell of a time. I mean, it's a tough time, and now with cutting capacity again, I think people are worried. There's definitely going to be a need for federal dollars, more federal dollars, and I know no one wants to hear that, but the grant opportunities helped. They did, and Washington County and the City of Hagerstown did a great job of making sure people got their money quickly. There's going to be a need for more money, I think. All small business owners are really struggling, and it's hard enough to run a small business, especially a restaurant and bar. I mean, the rate of failure of restaurants and bars is so high because it's a tough business to be in, and then you add all these restrictions and it makes it worse. So I've been really proud to watch our community and our small businesses because they are supporting the heck out of each other. I mean, if you look at the Washington County takeout page that Tim Luperspeck made to really encourage people to post the pictures of their food and show where they were eating and rave about restaurants. I saw Jay from 28 South post 3 different restaurants today. They're in competition with him technically, but if they're doing good, they're all doing good. So I think it's been beautiful to watch. Although they're struggling, they're coming together to help each other, and that speaks to the character of our community a lot.
Now, outside of the restaurants and bars, are you hearing from other businesses and are you hearing what their unique concerns may be?
I mean, same thing. Amazon is kind of taking over the world right now. While people don't want contact, they can't go out and shop, they can't try things on, so everyone's getting things delivered. So I think it's straining really a lot of our businesses. I think that was going to come anyway, unfortunately, with the age of instant gratification. You can go on Amazon, purchase a dress, and it's on your doorstep the next morning. Even without COVID, I think there was going to be a change in the way businesses operate. I think this is just really rushing it ahead. But I think generally everywhere, not just restaurants and bars, but they're struggling and just trying to maintain and adapt. And working from home costs have increased. So if you have a mom, with schools being online, you have employees who are moms or dads and they can't have daycare, you got to supply computers and equipment that they can work from home. That's an increased cost. It's a lot of things people weren't thinking about prior to this that puts a strain on budgets.
Understood. Well, thank you for joining us. Good
Thank you
luck,
for having me.
because you have a tough task ahead of you.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to it.
But you have fresh blood, and hopefully you guys are going to do great things for the city.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Timmy.
Thanks for
Up
having me.
next, Governor Hogan's latest update on COVID-19. Stay with us for the report right after the break. Welcome back. Governor Hogan provided new COVID-19 requirements. Henry, what do we know?
Well, it's been a major upswing throughout the nation with COVID re-emerging, and it was predicted. As the weather starts turning colder, you're going to have people, more inside. Now, of course, that wasn't really this past week. It's been really nice in the area, but the issue is, people are being more confined, which is going to give the opportunity for it to fester and percolate a little bit more, and that's hit the community. That's now impacting going out to restaurants and dining. I think we're going back to a 50% capacity, where before we were 75%. So it's, we're rolling back to the previous step that we were in back in September. They say wear a mask, they say maintain 6 feet distance. The biggest challenge that we have in the community is some of us say, listen, we don't want the government oppressing us and telling us what to do. The governor does not have the legal authority to enforce a mask mandate. At the same point, you have others who are not able to, but they also need to get out and get fresh air or run to the grocery store or whatever. We need to be, if you see someone out there who is not wearing a mask, keep your distance from them. Okay, we're supposed to maintain a 6-foot distance anyway. Keep your distance from. The biggest concern I have is what we're headed back into. Let's make sure we don't go down another peg in the ladder. And so, maintain your distances, be respectful of others, and respect that umbrella around them. And if you're able to wear a mask, not because of a medical issue or other, then be respectful of that person, but keep your distance from them, because they would rather be helping prevent this, but sometimes you just don't have the option. But be smart, and think about those in the hospitality industry, those that are working in the food stores, those that are working in the other places of business, you know, respect, keep that distance from them, and you know, it's not their fault that, you know, they're working because they're trying to put food on the table. It's not their fault that the restrictions have been rolled back. You know, be considerate of what they do.
So from the new mandate, it looks like restaurant and bar occupancy is going back down to 50%.
Correct.
You're not able to stand up and eat or drink. I heard some of the concerns were that some restaurants were really turning into club type settings, so now they're going to be restricted in regards to kind of closing early. One of the concerns that I have is that there are still many people in our communities that think that COVID is a hoax. So that very well may affect their movements, especially coming into this holiday season, where many people have been restricted from seeing family and they have fatigue from COVID and things of that nature. So from my perspective, I'm not very optimistic in regards to where we're heading in the short term, because as the weather continues to cool, there's not going to be many opportunities for us to be outside. It's going to be mainly indoors. And I believe that this Thanksgiving season may continue the trends. How do you feel about that?
Well, I mean, I already know what my family's doing for Thanksgiving, and it's getting my family together like we've done in the past. You know, it's a couple different households. You know, two of the individuals are out in the public on a regular basis, and they are, you know, by their work requirements, are wearing masks. They are taking the safety procedures out there. So, you know, we have, you know, an elderly person in the family, and we have to be considerate of what their needs are. But at the same point, you know, we want to try to be inclusive. And, you know, Reggie, I know you have a family too, and you want to be involved, and you have to be considerate of their health concerns. If one of my family members isn't comfortable, I understand. Okay, I'm not going to force them to come and have, you know, roast turkey at the table. We'll pack them a to-go meal, okay, and drop it off on their doorstep. And that's possibly some things that as a family you may want to consider is if you have, you know, at-risk family members and you're planning on doing Thanksgiving dinner at your house, you know, make a to-go plate, okay? Pack it up, drop it off at their house. I know it's not the same, but, you know, when you have, you know, people who are immunocompromised or elderly family members, those are the at-risk groups. Let's be sensitive to them. You know, don't push them to go out. But, you know, if they're comfortable doing it, great. But don't push them to go out. Don't push them in a situation. And for all of us, if we're going into a situation that we're not comfortable with, then don't go in that situation. You know, be respectful. If you have a fever, if you have any of the signs and symptoms of COVID, stay home. Okay. You know, if you want to wait a day, make sure that you're not getting worse. That's your choice. We do have quick access testing, and you know, you can always go out and do that. It's non-judgmental. Let's see where we're at. You know, if you are testing positive, my goodness, provide the information to try to track down where it starts. Okay, am I comfortable giving the government details of what I've done over the last week of my life? No, I'm not. But at the same point, if it possibly saves a life or prevents other people, you know, if we can find the source factor of that, that's a benefit. And, you know, the only thing they have to do is pull your cell phone anyway, and they know exactly where you've been. So, you know, just be a little bit more cooperative.
I would just say myself personally, you know, it's been tough because I have not seen my mother that lives in Central Virginia for a year. And my mother's a two-time cancer survivor, so I have been very careful in regards to that. The compromise that I am making is I tested for COVID, or I went to get a test earlier this week, and as long as that comes back fine, this weekend I am headed to Virginia by myself, not with my entire family, to spend about 4 days with my mother. So that's kind of the compromise that I'm doing. Thanksgiving, I won't be there for Thanksgiving, but my goal is to buy her an iPad while I'm there, so that on Thanksgiving we can start having some Zoom and we can start having some conversations. And again, I'm originally from rural Virginia, so that's going to be a little challenging of figuring out exactly how I'm going to do so. So I'm going to stay 3 to 4 days to get that figured out and enjoy some of Mom's home cooking. Now, the one question I have for you is, your family gathering, is it going to be less than 25 people? because it's not mandated by the governor, but it's strongly encouraged that your indoor gatherings are less than 25.
It will be my children and then my mother-in-law. Okay, and I was not that prolific as a father, so my children, my grandchildren, so we're pretty safe. I think collectively it's going to be maybe 8 people in total. So we're even under the California mandate of 10. So we're safe out there. Really, when it comes down to it, we want to get our life back to normal. You want to be able to see your mother whenever you want to see your mother. You want your kids to see your mother whenever they want to see her. Okay? I want to get my life back to normal, and the only way we can do it, okay, yes, there is a vaccine. We'll talk about it later in the show. But really, we have to be smart in how we approach this. Don't go into situations where you think that you could be exposed or at risk. If you're not comfortable with the individuals you're going to be around, don't be around them. And you joked about the iPad. I swore I would never own one because I'm not a fan of Apple products. But for our family that lives outside of Reno, our son and our granddaughter and his wife, we have an iPad so we can communicate. And my wife can do FaceTime and things. And we talk once or twice a week on it. It's another way. Is it the same? No. But they're on the opposite side of the country, so it's not like I'm popping into their house unannounced anyway.
The other challenge in regards to traveling, especially outside of the state, and this is a consideration that I'll have to have, the other advisory coming from Hogan administration is that if you're traveling to one of the states where the positivity rate is above 10%, you're asked to self-isolate for 2 weeks once you return from that. I am not absolutely sure if Virginia is one of those states, but I'm working through how I'm going to handle it. And with my business, I will probably spend that time working from home and having my assistant work from home, and then also getting a COVID test. Do you have some travel planned in that short period of time that will take you out of state?
Well, not during the proposed shutdown that we're doing. In December, we do have a trip planned. And if you look at the map, just about everywhere in this country is going into the hot zone. There's a couple that are a little bit lower, but Maryland is right up there with them. And, I think maybe we spent a little too much time patting ourselves on the back. At the same point, I also believe in herd immunity, that if you're out there, our bodies can start to develop some resistance to it. Is there proven science? It certainly worked for, I believe it's Norway. Okay, different population, different climate, a whole different amount of variables there. Would it have worked here? I don't know. But, I have that debate with my wife as we drive along, because she thinks we should be completely open up and all back to normal. Some yes, some no. But we're going to go visit our son, and that's going to take us through. But again, I'm not taking public transportation. It's going to be my wife and myself, and we're going to drive. And our only exposure, we're taking a camper to go. So we're not even staying in public sites. We're staying in our own home on wheels. So it gives us the ability, yes, we're out there. We will make sure that we properly social distance where required by law or necessity. If I have to go in to pay for gas, I'll be wearing a mask to go in there and pay for my gas. It's a different way. Not everyone has that ability to do it. But I have friends who say, listen, I'm not flying, I'm not doing this, I'm not doing that. Yeah, I'm completely shut in. And I understand that. There is a real fear, but we also have to sometimes confront our fear. Take little steps. We were in Myrtle Beach during the summer, and my wife's aunt and uncle lived down there, and they had been locked down, had not left the building, except for doctor's appointments since the outbreak started. And that's really tough. It's really, even though they're around their friends in that community, it's really tough because you're socially isolated into, a small apartment. And so, it's the mental welfare that you have to be concerned with, and that's the real important thing. I mean, we went to see them, and they were up, on the second floor. I'm like, Herman, where art thou, Herman? And he came out onto the porch. Those are challenging times, and we obviously had the distance, and then they said, well, here, take some of our strawberry shortcake we got because our freezer's full, and they're tossing shortcake in a little plastic styrofoam container down to us. It's like, we really don't need it, but we have to find a way to make life as normal for those in our life, even in this challenging time, to make them feel like they're still included, to make them feel as if mentally they're still actively involved in the family, even though we can't be there with them.
Right.
And that's the challenge that for the healthy population that we have to have. I don't want to wear a mask, okay? I don't. I'm sure you don't. But the last thing I don't want to see is a member of my family get ill because I didn't take the proper precautions. And I know we all say it won't happen to me. Well, if I wear a mask, if that person wears a mask, why do I not have to wear a mask? It's just preventative maintenance. And, I don't like it, but I am currently complying with it.
Understood. My heart breaks locally for our athletes. I mean, our athletes are now on a 3-week hiatus from sports, and who knows how that's going to turn out in regards to finishing their seasons. My heart really breaks for the seniors that may not be able to finish and complete their senior year. I understand this is affecting recruiting, all over the country, but some states have advantages to our states, especially like some of the warmer weather states, in regards to recruiting, in regards to football and things of that nature. But one of the bright spots during this pandemic is, both of my daughters play for volleyball for the Liberty Elite club team here, and they were able to successfully have a fall league and complete that league without any incidents of COVID that I'm aware of, and continuous play. And that was pretty amazing to me that they were able to do so without being in a bubble like the NBA athletes.
Well, the unique thing is, and I maybe the facts have changed since I heard them a few days ago, there have been no reports of transmissions on athletic fields. They did a study with the English Premier League and several of the soccer leagues in Europe. They have not had a COVID case going across between players. The exposure that an athlete may have experienced was outside of the sports realm. So that's interesting. I know locally we had our high school playing, we had club ball playing. I'm from a soccer background. I know they were playing. Now all of a sudden we threw the e-brake on. We talked a few shows ago about should we have started sports up. And the tough thing is now they're talking, we'll come back in December, okay? Breaking the news, soccer players wear shorts and normally a short sleeve shirt. It's going to be a little chilly in December unless it's like this past week here. That's a challenge. That's a challenge for everyone across the board. It may be an abandoned season, which, I guess playing some games is better than playing no games. You mentioned about college recruiting. I think we really should get beyond, sports are a nice sanctuary to get us out of things. As parents, as athletes, it's great to have that escape for the 90 minutes or 120 minutes that you're out there. But at some point, we have to consider, is being in a confined gymnasium the best resource, okay? During the volleyball games that your daughters participated in, were fans allowed?
The way that they were set up, one parent was allowed in to video it for the rest of the team.
Okay.
And then there was one coach along with the team. When we got down to the championship, later there were more parents that were allowed in for that portion of it, and that worked out.
Okay.
But so they were very controlled in regards to kind of how they did it, and I applaud them.
So there wasn't a huge risk of exposure of family members sitting side by side in the bleachers?
Because they weren't allowed into the facility in large numbers. Like I said, only one parent was there. And the last thing I'll say on this is that on the state level, it was just announced that the Maryland-Ohio State football game has been canceled because of an uptick in regards to the Maryland football team in regards to COVID. So for us sports fans, that one's off the table as Maryland was starting to get hot.
Maryland was getting hot. Maybe it's a blessing in disguise. We don't know. They certainly had a good game against Penn State the other day. Ohio State's a powerhouse. It would have been nice to notch a W, but then again, it's not really great to notch an L beside it.
We could talk sports all night, but we're going to hold it there because we're out of time. So that is all the time we have for tonight. We hope that you'll like us on Facebook, Follow us on Twitter and send us your comments to feedback@theflipsidetv.com. That is feedback@theflipsidetv.com. Most important, we hope you will join us again next week for another episode of The Flip Side.